In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about how to migrate your metadata, export your metadata from newly created cataloged records in IRIS 2008 into MDID. So to begin with, let's go ahead and start inside IRIS 2008. After you've logged on, go ahead and move to the Images table. And let's just say, for the sake, in the Admin Notes tab, let's go ahead and say that we are going to export something like this one. Just so that you know what you're looking at. When you are doing any type of approving of finished cataloged works, there's a couple different fields here that kind of make it a little bit easier. First off, the Ready to Export field is the button that definitely has to be checked. Let's say you're approving an entire order, you could click yes on one and then do the Control plus, and that will apply it to the entire found set. You only want to do that if you searched for a found set of one order. Then you also notice down here these skeletal export and first full export. When you first accession, we do an export just so that we have something that the images will be able to be attached to, so that professors can start using the images even before they're cataloged. However, once they're cataloged, then we also use the first full export, and this is also what we use to get our monthly stats. So let's just say we are going to be exporting this one. It's going to be going into the VRC main collection. However, if it were going into the Rhode Island architecture, you could also drop it down to there. So we have one image that's ready to export. The next thing that we need to do is go to the IRIS export file. Now you can either do it, usually it's found in the Open Recent, but if you need to, you can go to Open Remote and enter it or start it up from there. So IRIS export. Go ahead and log on. And really what the IRIS export file is a much more simplified version that is just used for exporting, obviously. So you click on the images, and then you do a find, so Control F, and you just click the Ready for Export. Or let's say that you had some images that were going into the main collection, some that were going into the Rhode Island architecture collection. You could also do a drop down here for VRC main or Rhode Island, so that way you can separate and you're not moving things into the wrong MDID collection. So once you have that, click enter, and you'll see that we have one matching record, so this should make it faster. You can usually export all the way up to a few thousand at a time. However, once you get up into really big numbers, it really doesn't like doing it. So once you have your found set, click the export over here. Yes, you want to do one local. Now don't be afraid of the records remaining to delete. This usually doesn't stay up very long, but because of the software we're using to run this tutorial, it's staying up a little bit longer than usual. Alright, now you don't want a report, so no printing of report. And I just click OK. And then it goes and builds the record from all of it and exports it into an Excel document at that point in time. Now, oftentimes while this is running, I go ahead and start prepping for the export to be completed. So I go over to the export folder that is found on the desktop. Inside this export folder, you will see that there are a number of different files. There's actually only two files that you will be using for the export: the fields and the MDID export. The fields is what you want to start out with. This is all of the mapped metadata fields. So if you change any of the export steps, then you will also need to change the fields. But if you have everything set, then it will all match and map perfectly. So I always start with a copy, and then I downsize and go back to this. Now you see the finish export. What you do here is if you click OK, it goes back through all of them, removes the ready for export yes, and it also puts in the date for when it was exported. I'm going to go ahead and click OK, but it's already done, so I'll just move on to the next step because this sometimes does take a little bit of time. So the next step, let's go back to the export folder, open up MDID export. Now, the MDID export will have what you have just exported. In this case, it's one record, 346832. I right-click on the first line and click Insert Copied Cells. I save, and usually I do save yes, and then I close it, and this one I do no. And then you go into MDID, log in, go to Collections, select the collection that you are going to be importing images to. In this case, it would be the VRC main collection. And you go up to Import Data. Now this is relatively easy. You just click either the Browse or click in the file. And it asks for what file you would like to import. So go to the Export folder, go to MDID Export, click Read File, and everything is mapped. After you correctly map it the first time, it stays this way. However, one thing I always do is click the Replace Existing Records, especially because we do that skeletal export that is just the file name, the image number, and what order it belongs to. So at this point, once you have a full cataloged images, you want to replace that. So click the Replace Existing Image Records, go to the bottom, click Import Data, and it refreshes every 10 seconds, but this one will be done now. And there you go. You have actually imported into that specific collection. But then again, let's say you had multiple different collections, one or some group of images being done that were for Rhode Island architecture. You would need to do two separate exports and imports. So do the full process one at a time. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of how we are using IRIS 2008 to import or to export data to import into MDID.